Everyone's talking about, TV everywhere and the opportunities and, the opportunities outside the cable box and through this new technology. Give us an update on where the industry stands and some of the trends you're seeing.
Right, well, I think it's helpful to break apart the industry. And the good news is I think the last 18 months has seen a kind of a dramatic acceleration in moving different players, whether those be cable networks, whether those be distributors, advertisers, etc., towards buying in towards this TV everywhere vision. There's a lot of benefit to be had from it. I think one of the areas worth kind of exploring is really why the concept is there, why the vision is there, but why for the average consumer, the actual their day-to-day behaviors or their day-to-day opportunities have not been TV everywhere, right? And I think one of the big challenges is ultimately that different stakeholders have different perspectives in terms of how that TV everywhere vision will play out. So if we take a kind of a distributor like Time Warner Cable, we obviously have 14 million subscribers who we love to interact with across as many platforms as possible. And so our vision would be to enable our subscribers to be able to view their video content on any platform, on any device, whether that be inside the home, which we're doing right now, for example, with our iPad app or our Android app or our iOS app. But as we go outside the home, you get into a discussion around kind of rights. So ultimately, many of the cable networks see a kind of a parallel vision where they see that because there are incremental rights that would go along with that consumption outside of the home, that's a different discussion. So where this plays out is anybody's guess, because I think the end point is clear for all, but from a control perspective, because you have different stakeholders wanting to own and shape that consumer experience, it's leading to different kind of like versions of TV everywhere being deployed.
Tell us about consumption on devices and where that might be going.
What we're seeing is there's far more snacking that's going on. The length of a given session typically tends to be much smaller, and actually news, for example, so like a CNN or a CNBC tends to do a lot better because it's a 5 to 15 or 20 minute consumption experience as opposed to a couple of hours on the couch watching the large screen TV. So you're seeing different types of content resonate differently on different types of platforms as part of that TV everywhere experience.
So how about advertising surfacing into that environment? What can we expect, and where does that stand now?
And I think as we think about TV everywhere, one of the biggest challenges has been around dynamic ad insertion. If an advertiser can't insert easily across multiple different platforms and devices, it's going to be difficult for them to monetize. And if they can't monetize, then you're not going to see the types of content you see in a live platform available across these other devices which are part of TV everywhere.
Tell us about kind of advertising that we can anticipate in this environment, and perhaps what your thoughts are about all this money coming into the campaigns.
Yes, so it's an interesting dynamic. I think one of the biggest areas of contention is between customization versus scale. And what I mean by that is, as we think about TV everywhere and we think about measurement of video consumption across multiple platforms, some way to scale that cost effectively and measure that consistently are going to be critical, or again, to the point, it's going to be difficult for programmers and advertisers to monetize those new devices. I think the related piece, though, is ultimately kind of how can we drive richer, more creative campaigns. And so as we think about ITV, for example, so we've run over 1,500 ITV campaigns across our footprints. So we've lit up ITV across all of our major markets. More than 30 Time Warner Cable markets are enabled with ITV. And the simplest case is you're watching a 30-second spot and an overlay comes on. You can actually click on the red button to engage with the advertiser more deeply. We're trying to kind of work with advertisers to strike the balance between far more creative options across these different platforms, whether that be live, on demand, ITV, online, while at the same time coming up with creative ways that allow an advertiser to stand out from the noise.
What's happening in terms of premium cable operators, making their content available? We've heard about ESPN, about where do things stand in your opinion? Where might things go this year in terms of more content being available through the so-called TV everywhere scenario?
You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see more of it. I think some of the challenges I outlined before, primarily in terms of dynamic ad insertion or ways to measure kind of consumption across different platforms are going to be key obstacles that are being overcome that will actually lead to far richer examples of TV everywhere. Like in the HBO example, obviously they're not advertising dependent. So the interesting thing for HBO is how do they propagate their app or their content across as many platforms and devices as possible. So each different cable provider or kind of a programmer has often a different vision about how they see TV everywhere. Every consumer has a different vision about how they see TV everywhere. But the good news is we're all generally moving in the right direction. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of innovation in the space.